The 2025 NBA draft is right around the corner. Game 7 has barely ended, but we're already looking toward the future. The NBA calendar is crazy like that. And for us, we're focused on the Australians. This is the ESPN Aussie Hoops Hour. I'm Olgun Uluc. There are 4 Australians who will more than likely hear their name called on one of the 2 draft nights. And we wanted to dive deep into what the NBA teams like. What do they need to get better at? So I was joined by Jonathan Givony, our ESPN draft expert. He's been doing this for a long time. There aren't many people around world basketball who have their finger on the pulse in a more expansive way than Jonathan. We spoke about everything. Toohey, what teams love about him, what teams are still concerned about. Rocco Zikarsky, an enigma, someone who it's very difficult to get information out of his camp for a lot of people. So where could he go? Will he have an AJ Johnson like rise up the draft boards? We will see. Tyrese Proctor out at Duke, Lachlan Olbrich going from the G League elite camp to the NBA Combine to now looking like a surefire draft pick. What an awesome story that was too. So we spoke about everything, and then we also touched on the upcoming FIBA Under-19 World Cup. That'll be in Switzerland. The Australian Emus team is already in Europe preparing for that. That'll be led by Dash Daniels. So what does Givony think of Dash and what he needs to do to make sure that he's a surefire draft pick in 2026, where Jonathan has him as a top 10 pick right now? So we went into everything when it came to Australian prospects and their future in the NBA. If you enjoy our content, please rate, review, subscribe, all that jazz. We will have more and more content as the NBA season comes to an end, the draft period and summer league starts, and then we go into the NBL season. So please make sure to keep an eye on our channels for all that content. But until then, please enjoy my chat with Jonathan Givony. All right, John, thank you so much for joining me. We're about a week out from the draft, so I appreciate you taking the time because I know you are extremely busy. Just before we get into the Australians in the draft, what does this sort of week look like for you going into it? How much change is there? Is it just purely intel gathering? What does it look like?
So a lot of getting ready for the draft itself, just making sure that, when guys get picked, we have stuff ready to, actually present on our website, and working on my 2026 mock, which is going to drop the day after the draft. So don't want to leave that for the last minute. And yes, a lot of phone calls, yeah, some TV stuff here and there, and it's just a little bit of everything, honestly.
Yeah, so we'll touch on the 2026 stuff later because we were sort of preparing for maybe 5 or 6 or maybe 7-ish, either Australian or NBL adjacent people in this draft. A lot of them dropped out. And let's start on some of those guys, if that's cool. Alex Condan is a name who you had, late first, around at one point, early second. He was sort of hovering in that range, made the decision to go back to Florida. What's your feel on the intel that he received throughout that process?
I talked to Alex several times, throughout this process. When he entered the draft, I broke the news, and then I was in Irvine watching him work out. I interviewed him there. And then when he withdrew, I broke that news too and spoke with him pretty extensively. I just think that he was in such a great situation at Florida that he just wasn't ready to leave it unless he just had an incredible situation in the NBA that he couldn't pass up. And it wasn't even first round. I mean, he was talking about top 20. And I think he got to the combine. He didn't even play 5-on-5. I think his mind was made up by then already that he was going back to Florida, especially when Thomas Houck, his good friend and roommate, decided not even to enter the draft. I just think he had such a wonderful time in Gainesville. He wasn't ready for it to end just yet.
So he came back to Perth for a little bit, worked out, and then I think he's back in Florida already. What's your feel on the things that he needs to continue to work on to make sure that he does solidify himself toward the top of 2026?
I think it's continuing to improve on his body, just adding that strength to be a guy that can play 4 and 5. Improving as a defensive rebounder, becoming a better low post defender, but then offensively becoming a more consistent shooter. I think that's going to be a huge thing for him. He's not, the most vertically explosive guy around, but his feel for the game is so good. He's such a good passer. He's so versatile on both ends of the floor that, adding that consistent spot up 3-point jumper is going to be huge for him. If he adds that, then he's going to be such a versatile player who can really do everything on both ends of the floor.
Now, without revealing like too much about what your 26 mock is going to look like, what's the range of Condan at this point, at like this early in the process?
Let me pull it up. Actually, I don't even remember. I just kind of tossed it together, and then
Is this breaking news? We're going to
it's
get
not
some
even
breaking news.
finalized yet. But let's see what I got here. I have like an early draft. I have him at 23rd right now on my 2026 mock.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
A lot of guys, you
Now,
have to think about, a lot of guys came back, so it's like I'm looking at this, there are way more sophomores, seniors, juniors than you would normally expect in my first round. I don't think I even had, one returning college player on my 2025 mock a year ago, and now I see like nine. So it's like that just shows you how many guys went back to school, how many guys didn't even enter the draft. A guy like Sergio De La Rea, 19 years old, had a phenomenal year at Valencia. A lot of people thought he was going to enter and be a first rounder. He didn't even enter. So 2026 is going to be a loaded draft.
is this making your job easier? Like, I assume a lot of NIL stuff, but like guys knowing more clearly that yes, they're either in or out really earlier in the process.
I mean, I think it's good for the recognition of from like casual fans of like who these guys are, to have players who are a little bit older that they've watched over the course of a couple of years. Everybody knows Alex Condan now. Every time that we write about him, tweet about him, like his stuff pops because he won a national championship. He had that really memorable final possession, diving on the floor for a loose ball to seal the win against Houston. And now Alex Condan is going back to school. And so we got a whole year to cover him, follow him, talk about his improvement, all the big games that Florida is going to play in the non-conference and then the SEC. I think that's, that for us, that's great. And I think for Alex Condan, that's great. And it's also great for the NBA teams because they'd much rather have Alex Condan as a junior, a little bit more physically mature, a little bit stronger, a little bit more polished and ready to come in and make an impact. It's better for the teams if the draft is older. Otherwise, you're turning into really like a development league where it's like you're drafting all these 19-year-olds and 90% of them are like 2 or 3 years away from being able to help you. So I really think this is a win-win for everybody involved.
All right, now let's talk about Alex Condon's good friend, Ben Henshaw. He was also in the midst of that draft process. He withdrew late. There's obviously a lot of smoke that college is an option for him. A lot of money being thrown at him. I'm sure you've heard the same schools that I have throwing money at him. The Perth Wildcats, hopeful that he will not be able to go to college, and then they can hopefully swoop in and have him come back to the Wildcats. But similar question about Ben, which is, what was the sort of intel he received that he needs to get better at to be a full-blown draft candidate next year, where he's order eligible, right?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think Ben Henshaw should go to college for as long as he can and make as much money as possible, because I think when people saw him, in Chicago they just realized like physically he's not particularly close to being an NBA player, and there's not a whole lot that he can do. He's just like he's kind of narrow in stature. He's got these small hands. He's not a particularly athletic kid, and there's nothing that really like pops. He's not like he's like this like Lonzo Ball-esque passer, or this Con Knipple type shooter or something like that. So it's like I'm not sure what makes him, like, I mean, he could be like a late second round pick or something like that. Like he was, kind of, in the mix to be potentially this year. But I'm not sure like what separates him from like the best players we have in the Big Ten, or, in the ACC or the SEC or whatever. But the great part about the fact that he's going to college is that now he gets to, shove that in my throat, down my throat, and say like, now I'm a first team all Big 12 guy, and playing at a really high level, and you get to go up, playing the NCAA tournament and all that. And that's really the advantage of NIL is, if you're that guy, then like come and show it, because I do think that like the NBO is a great league, but it's not, it's the level of defenses and all that, the physical tools, I think are greater. It's harder to score, I think, in college than it is in the NBL.
So very early days right now, but there are obviously questions about how he can be eligible from like an NIL standpoint, and then also just from an academic standpoint. At this point, is your feel that there will be a way for him to be eligible, and he will more than likely end up in college?
These things always get figured out, like tell me the last guy that like was ruled completely ineligible, like these college coaches know how to get players into their schools. And I think the NCAA has completely lost their appetite to fight this battle. I think they've realized that like it's not about academics anymore. Like if he didn't go to like every class that they would have wanted him, maybe 5 years ago they would have docked him something. But it's not about class anymore, man. It's pro sports. This is what college basketball is, and everybody's making a shit ton of money, and so is the NCAA. And so like I just think that like they've let so many guys through at this point that they're not. Ben Henshaw is not going to be the one that they're like, oh no, not this guy, So I'm pretty sure he'll be just fine.
Yeah, and I think by the same token, the numbers being thrown at him, feels like a 2 to 3 million sort of range. He's going to do everything he can to make himself eligible.
Right, he'll get a lawyer, and like that's what these guys do. Like and they don't get the answer they want, then like a lawyer will just threaten them, and then eventually like they'll capitulate, and these guys get eligible. This is what every school goes through these days. And the NCAA is just so tired of it; they're just kind of letting people in. They're just like, forget about it. If everybody's eligible, who cares? It just makes the sport really great. So it's like I don't even know what their advantage is to like stopping a Ben Henshaw from playing college basketball. It literally benefits nobody.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let's focus on the draft. Who is staying in the draft? And just going through your mock draft, the most recent one you dropped a couple of days ago with Jeremy Wu. This is a week out. Is this the final mock, or is there a mock that comes just before the draft? How do you work there?
We've got another one, I think, coming on Monday or Tuesday, something like that, which will be updated, like as trades happen or new intel comes in. Like we'll probably like update it the day of the draft, even maybe multiple times the day of the draft. So not going to be like anything dramatic, I would imagine. But I mean, listen, let's say like KD gets traded to Toronto or Phoenix, and all of a sudden, to Houston, and all of a sudden Phoenix has the 9th or 10th pick, then like, that changes things, like with different situation. Yeah. And so we've already seen a couple of trades, and it feels like there's going to be a couple more.
Okay, cool. So the first Australian you have is Toohey, Alex Toohey. He's at 37 right now on your mock. He had a really solid combine, and from what I understand, he's done a ton of workouts with NBA teams over this process. What's the sort of intel you're gathering on Toohey and why teams might like him and might take him and even roster him, guarantee a spot for him?
Everybody loves his feel for the game. He's a really instinctual basketball player. I think back to the first time I saw him, I'm looking at my notes here, was in 2022. So that was 3 years ago. And where was this? In February. I must have been like a BWB or something like that. Oh, no, it must have been like an NBA Academy Games. Yeah. What's that?
You said like an Academy Games, right?
Yeah. I wrote that he was guarding Leonard Miller. So where could that have been? So that was. I mean, you could say he was playing point guard back then, and that's what we really loved about him. I remember that summer right after is when he really popped at the NBA Academy Games. He led the Global Academy to the championship. He was playing point guard there. He was just taking all these rebounds, busting out off the glass, and he had like 1,000 college offers pop up, and everybody wanted him. And it was just really interesting to see like the 6'8" guy who, could really do everything at that point. And, he's playing so hard. He's so competitive. He comes from this great background. His parents are both, from the military. And, he's just a really sharp, tough, smart player, which everybody loves these days. The shooting, never quite came around, which I think that's the main question. I think if he were like a knockdown shooter, 40% guy, then like he's a lock first round pick. There's no question. He's probably like, he goes like, in the 15 to 25 range. And so that's really what people are wondering about, because they love his versatility on defense. He's so like aware off the ball with his rotations, rotating to challenge shots at the rim, digging down for steals, getting blocks, getting rebounds, assists. He does everything, really. And just like, there were periods where it looked like the shooting was really coming around. I remember, like, what was it like in the preseason at the Blitz or whatever? He had like, they went 4 for 4 or for 3 or whatever in some game, and we're like, okay, it's really coming. And then he started off like really strong, and it's kind of like a little bit up and down. Like there were some monster games. I remember, I think was it like the Illawarra game, like really stood out in like December or something. But I mean, yeah, Alex Toohey, like you said, very strong combine, and there's a lot to like there. Just the question is, is he going to make shots at a high enough level?
So the numbers in the NBL, they were sort of middling from a shooting perspective, but I think when you look at the mechanics and then his combine performance, where he shot it reasonably well, granted super small sample size. How much stock do people put into those performances, in the mechanics that and then his development that you sort of trust that the shot will get there?
I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at my database now. We have 168 games of his, dating back to 2018. And, he's a 31% three-point shooter for his career. And then this year in the NBL was 30%. His free throw percentage improved 73%. That's good. That's not great. I mean, the mechanics, whatever. I mean, at some point, I think you want to see a guy make shots for a consistent period, and he just hasn't made the strides. And I'm not sure that he ever really showed the belief in himself as a shooter. Even when he was going through those stretches where he was shooting at a very high clip, you still felt like he was passing up open ones, he would have, 2 good games and then disappear. And that's always been the thing with Alex is can he play well over a sustained period of time? It's kind of what we've been waiting for. But listen, he just turned 21. He's it's only his second season really playing in the NBL, and he got definitely better. So, that's why he's at 37 on our board and not at 27 or 22.
Yeah, in your gut, your feel right now, in 3 years' time, is Alex Toohey a rotation player in the NBA? Do you trust the IQ and the size to get him to that point?
Yeah, I could see him being Kenrich Williams, something like that, where a little kind of like a situational combo forward who some nights plays, some nights doesn't. And a lot of it depends on his first stint, they throw him in, they give him 5 minutes. If he's rolling that night, then they keep going. And if he's not, then he doesn't get that second or third stint, in the second half. So, but it's hard to predict, man. Honestly, it's really hard to say. I mean, he maybe he gets with the right shooting coach or whatever, and it just clicks for him, and then he finds his groove, and he's a 40% 3-point shooter, and then he's a very good NBA player if that's the case.
Let's talk about someone who I think is probably harder to evaluate, and that's Rocco Zikarsky, who had an up and down, but I think largely down season in Brisbane purely because of opportunity. He just barely saw the floor, and so it's very difficult to even gauge, has this guy gotten better? What would he look like at the next level? But got to the combine, measured extremely well, looked like he put on a ton of weight. What's the feel on Rocco? You have him at 41 right now. He's still 18, turns 19 in a month. Is this someone who NBA teams are believing in more and more?
People have thrown out, some potential teams the Bucks at 47, the Grizzlies at 48, maybe the Bulls at 45, because he did it early, even before a lot of these guys pulled out of it. There were 2 different deadlines that have passed. The NCAA deadline where a lot of guys pulled out, and then the international deadline where even more guys pulled out. So he's moved up on our board probably 10 spots in the last month, not doing anything, just because everybody's moved up 10 spots. So it's interesting to be interesting to see. I mean, I totally understand if they have assurances he's going to be picked, and rostered and the buyout be paid, and it's a development situation that they're comfortable in with somebody working with him on a daily basis, and also, the G League or whatever. Like, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. The guy's 18 years old, so it's like you can't put a ceiling on a guy like that.
It feels very, from what you're saying, very like AJ Johnson-y, where in the NBL didn't really show too much, but he had a promise, and he went way earlier than I think a lot of us thought, or at least than
Yeah,
I thought.
yeah.
Do you think it's that sort of situation almost to a T? Maybe not as early though.
Yeah, I would be the first round would surprise me. I think that like so the Bucks promised AJ Johnson. I think they had like 23 and 33 or 23 and 34. And I think the promise was at 34, but they just felt like I guess stressed about it or whatever on draft night, and they decided to take him with that earlier pick, which really shocked a lot of people. And so I'm not sure. I mean, with Rocco, like, yeah, I mean, it feels like they he was working out in Minneapolis for an extended period of time. And wouldn't shock me if somebody came to the building and liked them and was like, hey, let's just get this done, man. And what does it really matter if you're 31 or 41 or 51? As long as you have a roster spot and it's a team that you like, then it makes a lot of sense to just focus on that team. But the problem is that like there's nothing stopping any other team from just drafting him. Like just because the Bulls at 45 really want Rocco doesn't mean that like whoever is at 44, like the Thunder or the Jazz at 43, the Kings at 42, they might just take him anyway. So it's like that's kind of the risk with the promise that like you can't really hide the medical anymore because they changed the rules. If you want to be drafted, you have to submit for a medical, and then every team in the league gets it. So there's really nothing stopping any of these teams saying, "Hey, well, we know that your health is fine, whatever. Like we've seen you play all year. We maybe even interviewed you at the combine. We're just gonna nab you, like." And so that's that we'll see like what ends up happening. That's gonna be interesting, and what the fallout is after in terms of like why did he not do any workouts? I mean, listen, maybe he got dinged up or something. Who knows? Like it's hard to say.
So we barely saw Rocco in the NBL this season, but it seems like all eyes are on the NBA for him. What does he have to do to be a surefire NBA player for a good amount of time? Because there's still obviously so many things. He's still so raw and so young. What does he have to do to get to the NBA and stick there?
I was disappointed with the impact that he made defensively. I thought that for a guy who's 7'4", with a 9'6" standing reach, he didn't block many shots, and he was really like pretty much a traffic cone in pick and roll. Like, I mean, people would like say, "Oh, Brisbane didn't play him enough," whatever. But like when he played, it was bad, and like it was glaringly obvious that like people were just going at him, and he was. I just don't think his feel for the game, his processing speed, his physicality, his motor, all those things aren't there. Now that makes sense. He's 18. Like these 7'4" guys, it takes some time sometimes to get there, but like there's no guarantee that he will get there in terms of like just the way that he processes the game and rotates and is in the right spots and all that. Like I think his mobility, obviously his body is going to be the big thing. Is like, can he ever learn to sit down and like just cover ground better, like in the half court? Like that's easier said than done. But and this is what the NBA guys do. I mean, they hire like the very best people from all over the world, and so like if they can help him figure out that part of things, then he's got a chance to be really good.
Awesome. Next on your list, you have all these Australians in such a short range. You have Tyrese Proctor at 43, and what you were just saying about Ben Henshaw is something that I heard people say about Tyrese Proctor over the past couple of seasons, which is this combo guard type, but what does he excel at? What is the sort of elite skill? Like why would we draft him when there's probably a 19-year-old who would do the same stuff? What's the sell on Tyrese Proctor and why he is an NBA player?
Probably the shooting, I would say. I mean, he made a big jump with his shooting. He had some monster games this year in the ACC where he looked like a very dynamic shooter, not just like hitting spot outs, but also like, attacking a closeout and then like, step backs, pull up threes, punishing unders. That game in the NCAA tournament against Baylor where he made 7 threes, that really, stands out in your memory. He had several games like that this year. Like there was a Clemson game, the Stanford game. So I think it's like, being 6'5.5" and being like a great shooter. I mean, that's definitely a skill. And then on top of that, he plays a very clean, mistake-free style. He's very unselfish. Everybody says he's a very high character guy. He's a guy that's not going to hurt you, and so like he can come in, make shots, execute offensively. He's not a great defender, but he's not a bad one. He definitely competes. He's improved on that end, and so I think that's a sell, is that he's someone that can hold water for you coming off the bench.
How helpful is it for Tyrese that the draft happens right after the playoffs, and when you watch the playoffs, the value in just a guy who can just dribble, pass, shoot, just the basic stuff. How valuable is that? Teams watching that and then seeing someone like Tyrese and thinking, oh, he can be a functional basketball player. Like he will make good decisions. He can dribble. He can shoot it if we need him to. Is that helpful for him?
I mean, to me, this playoffs has been all about like physicality and toughness and like just physical strength and being able to play through contact and all that. And if I had to talk about a weakness for Tyrese Proctor, it would probably be that, how his body just did not improve over his 3 years at Duke. And I'm looking at my notes. So he came in as a 17-year-old. He was 178 pounds. He weighed at the NBA Academy Games in 2021, 4 years ago. At the NBA Combine last month, he weighed 183 pounds. So in 4 years, he added 5 pounds. 183 pounds, like being 6'6" is great, but like he really is functionally, he plays a lot smaller than that because of his body and all that. And really that's the concern, is like you look at these games, they're so physical and every screen is a moving screen and they're just pushing and grabbing and holding and and the pressure is so high, and so it's like those are the questions I think people have about Tyrese Proctor, like when not in like a 1-on-0 or whatever, like a combine, spot up shooting drill, but like when it's pressure packed environment, like where is Tyrese Proctor going to be when you need him to make like 2 big free throws, like with a minute left on the clock or something like that.
Gotcha. One name that a lot of people have brought up with Tyrese is sort of like a Andrew Nembhard type, just with like the shot creation and things like that. But yeah, right now Nembhard, at least he's listed at 191, so there is a jump there, and obviously he has the defensive
guy, but like he's turned himself into an incredible defender. Like he is, he's the guy that's guarding Shea in this NBA Finals, and he was not considered like a great defender in college. So that is like encouraging for a guy like Tyrese Proctor, that maybe he can improve that level of physicality and become better on that end of the floor. Because Andrew Nembhard, also not like a gifted guy physically. I see weighed 196 at the combine. That's 13 pounds. I mean, that's significant. But only 6'3" barefoot, 6'6" wingspan. So Tyrese Proctor is bigger and longer. He's just not quite as strong as Nembhard, who also still you could see is kind of a thin guy, even though it looks like he's probably more at like a 205 now, like maybe even 210 potentially, now that he's been in the NBA for 3 years. And you hope that Tyrese can continue to bulk up too and maybe get up to like a 190 or a 195 ideally.
Now, the last Australian you have on your mock is someone who was hovering around, I think, the 70s and 80s in the top 100 for the entire NBL season. And then he's just come in, had a really good G League elite camp, got invited to the combine. He's Lachlan Olbrich. He's at 50 on your mock, which I think is the highest that you've ever had him.
Yeah.
What impressed you about what he did first at the elite camp and then through the combine? In my mind, he was obviously going to play well at those sorts of things because he's been a functional basketball player in the NBL. But what did you like about what you saw from him?
Just how hard he played, honestly. Like I'm pretty sure he led the combine in rebounding, 11 per game by a huge margin, by the way. He grabbed the rebound every 2 minutes he's on the floor. He scored 14 points a game. I mean, I'm looking at every stat at the leaderboard. He's like basically at the top. I mean, PER and field goal percentage, rebound percentage, offensive rebound. He was just everywhere. And like the skill level, it's unique. I mean, it's not like a traditional skill level in terms of his shooting and all that, but like he's got like all the old man tricks, the way he grabs rebounds and like busts out, takes the ball coast to coast, playing off two, jump stop, pivot, reverse, left hand, right hand. He's a fun player. He knows how to draw fouls. He's a very good passer. He's a fun player, man. He just, you just wonder, he's a little bit stuck between positions, 6'11" wingspan. So it's like, at that, he doesn't have any length, but he's only 230 pounds. So he doesn't really block shots. And so you're wondering, like, who is he going to guard at the NBA level? And can he make shots? Because that's something that he's never been able really to do at the NBL level. I know he's done it in like NBL 1 or, other settings, but, even at Riverside, he made some threes. It's hard to understand why he only shot 54% from the free throw line this year. It feels like he went backwards in that regard. And so, I mean, his mechanics, it's going to be a work in progress for him. I mean, that's going to be a big thing for him, because I do think that, like, a guy like him, like, how does he score in the NBA? And because he's probably not going to be like a lockdown defender. So what gets him on the court is a question I think a lot of people have.
Obviously, the camp, the G League elite camp stuff was good, and the combine stuff was good, because that's obviously teams can watch him in person. But how much stock do you think the NBA teams put into what he did, for example, during the NBL playoffs, during the championship series, where toward the end of that series, when Sam Froling went down, the ball went into Lachlan Olbrich, and he was a target. He was someone who Melbourne United had to basically cave in on and send multiple bodies to in the post. Do teams put stock into that, or is it too much of a completely different game?
No, I think they put a lot of stock into that. I mean, the NBL is a very high level of competition. And for a guy who is 20, 21 years old to be able to step into those kind of games against, the best, the other best team in the league and produce, like, that's very impressive. So I think that means a lot. So I think that helped him quite a bit.
All right. Last thing I wanted to touch on, all that stuff on the draft is awesome, but the FIBA Under-19 World Cup is coming up. That's really soon. End of this month in Lausanne, Switzerland. I will not be there. I am stuck here in Australia, but I'll get to Summer League. But so you'll be there. What's your feel on the Australian team? So I think a lot of people. So I don't know if this is reported yet, but Rocco is not participating in this tournament. Rocco has withdrawn from the Australian team.
That's not a surprise, right?
Not at all, and especially considering what you're saying about how selective he's being about who he works out with. That makes sense. But
he's going to go to Summer League, so it doesn't make it, nobody that's in the draft will be at the FIBA U19 World Cup, right?
Yes. So he's withdrawn. I think the name that a lot of Australians will watch is Dash Daniels. I think he was in the top 10 in your 2026 mock. If you've been watching him in NBL 1, and I don't know how much stock to put into that league, because there is such a big difference between the NBL 1 and the NBL. He's playing extremely well, shooting it extremely well, which is something that I really wanted to see. What do you make of the Australian team, and what do you want to see from Dash in Switzerland?
I want to see him be aggressive. That's what we were missing last summer at the FIBA Under-17 World Cup. Sometimes it was the same thing with Dyson, honestly. It was like, there's so much ability there, and he's so unselfish that sometimes you just want to see him just be a little bit more of a motherfucker and just go into contact, smash into somebody, go throw one down on somebody. I want to see him just dunk on somebody, because he's so athletic that I know he can do it, and so that's what we want to see from him. I'm looking at the numbers here from the NBL 1. He's shooting the crap out of it. This is unbelievable. Like, he started 16 of 26. I guess I don't have all the stats. I don't know if that has he only played 5 games in the NBL 1.
He's only played 5 games. He joined Sandringham in the middle of their season.
3. Sheesh. But then Dash.
Yeah, mixture of spot up stuff, mixture of off the dribble stuff.
Yeah. He's shooting higher for 3 than he's shooting from the free throw line. Explain that to me, Olgun.
I can't explain that, John. but the 3-point shooting in like a multitude of ways is a thing that I haven't seen from Dash before.
Absolutely. No, that's definitely, that means something for sure. The rest of the team, it looks like a lot of fun. I'm looking at the roster right now. So Shea Brogan, that guy is awesome. Incredible passer, plays 0D, but tremendous feel for the game. I loved him at the the NBA Academy games. Like great haircut too. Hopefully he hasn't cut the mullet. Roman Sulepa, he's going to be there.
He will be.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I mean, he's got a chance to be one of the best players at the whole tournament. Didn't look like he was in very good shape coming off the injury in Treviso, but I mean, the guy is athletic. He's physical. He's just a huge mismatch at the 4. So, do we know where he's going to be playing next year, Olgun? We're going to break any news on the pod?
I'm scared to break news. I have a good idea where he's going to college next season.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah.
I don't know if anything's cleared or whatever, So, yeah, the rest of the roster. Oh, so Furphy is going to play too, Jacob
Furphy. So UConn,
they got a good roster.
You've got Luke.
They look like a medal contender. Like just the backcourt. Who's missing? I guess Furphy will have to. Sulepa will have to play the 5. There's not a lot of size. I guess it's Ajak Nayoun is probably their biggest player.
Well, with Rocco out, you assume that you're going to bring someone in to replace him because that's obviously your size there. Furphy with Jacob Furphy. So Emmett Adair is like a 6'8", 6'9", like 4-man. He played in one of the Boomers windows recently, and he's someone I really like. He can really shoot it. He's just a straight up stretch 4 out of Sydney. Luke Fennell is a Syracuse commit. Like he's someone worth watching. I know NBL teams like Nash Walker. And Alex Dickerson is someone who's been playing well in the NBL 1 right now. He's like a 6'4".
He was good at the BWB. Very good. Thin, but tough. Can really pass. He's a good player.
And for size, Jack Whitbourne is the other one. He's like a 6'10" guy out of Melbourne. There's like a skill set there. Physically, I don't know if he's completely there yet. I think moving is tough, but it's coach. The coaching staff is pretty elite when it comes to Australian coaches. But Dash Daniels is one that I think we're all. So Robin McKinlay is the head coach. So he's the head coach of the Center of Excellence, and then Joel Carlu is an assistant. So he's been an assistant with the Illawarra Hawks over the past couple of years, and Jacob Jackomas is also an assistant. So
they need a good result after last summer. Like that was embarrassing for Australia to finish like 15th or whatever at the U17. So it looks like they have a much better team. They should be a lot better this time around.
100%. And last one on this, and then I'll let you go because I've kept you way longer than I thought I would. But when I've been watching Dash in the NBL 1, I'm seeing some Dante Exum. And I don't know if that's maybe just because they're sort of bigger guards who handle the ball and who sort of can excel in the open court. But let's take the recent shooting stretch aside, which Dante didn't really have as a junior. But Dante was the first junior guy I ever covered. And I'm seeing, people try to connect Dash to Dyson, obviously, but I'm seeing more Dante than Dyson. And am I on the money, or can I absolutely not do what you do?
I see what you see, and it's an interesting comp. I just think that Dante at that age was so aggressive. I remember him at the under-17 World Cup. I mean, they went to, I think they lost in the finals maybe to the US, and he was basically like unstoppable that entire tournament. And that's really what made him a top 5 pick and then the next summer he played at the under-19 World Cup, and he was absolutely incredible. This was like pre-injuries, like he was so athletic, and he was playing point guard. Man, he was so much fun to watch. His body just completely changed once he got to the NBA. He used to be so thin and so explosive. I just think that there's a notch of like aggressiveness that Dante has that I haven't yet seen from Dash. But I think Dash is so much further ahead of Dante defensively. Like Dash is one of the best defenders in the world for his age. Like he's absolutely elite with his length, and it really looks like he's still growing too. I mean, he's grown. I'm going to look at my measurements here. Like, so the first measurement we had on him was 2 years ago. He was 6'4", barefoot, 179. And now he just measured 6'6", 199. So he's added 20 pounds. His body has just exploded, and he's 17. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, he he could legitimately have another inch or two. He could be 6'8" when it's all said and done. So I mean, just the talent is absolutely not the question with Dash, but just the ball handling and all that. Like that's where Dante, I think, was different, where he could just get anywhere he wanted on the floor. He was so smooth. Dash, I haven't seen that type of handle from him yet. It's like, no offhand, not a lot of wiggle yet. And again, like, Dyson was kind of the same at the same stage, but but there's so much talent there that I'm really excited to get another look at him here in a couple of weeks in Switzerland.
Well, awesome. Well, look, I'm excited for the draft. It's a really cool moment in time for like Australian junior basketball, from the draft to under 19. So I appreciate you coming on and talking about some of these guys. It's cool to get a detailed look at them. We see the mock drafts, we see their names, but figuring out what they're good at, what they need to get better at, that is super helpful. So I appreciate the time. Good luck with the draft. Good luck with U19s. And will I see you in Vegas?
I'll be there, yeah. I'll be there for like 5 days.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'll see you in Vegas, and I appreciate the time. Be well.
Yep. Sounds
Thanks,
good.
man.